Now we're going to talk about double y-axis charts. And just to clarify, we've been talking a bit about vertical axes and horizontal axes, but those are often referred to as being the y-axis and the x-axis. So what we're introducing now is a second y-axis. One of the reasons that we would want to do that, the most common one, is we're trying to show an association between two things that aren't on the same scale. So for example, if we wanted to show the association between average house sale price and something else that could also be shown in a comparable sale, like maybe asking price versus selling price, we could easily just show two lines but use only one axis for something like that. We're using the second axis when these values are very different. So for example, average house price here is shown in dollars ranging from 0 to 800,000, where weeks of inventory is shown between 1 and 25. And just to clarify, what weeks of inventory mean is if we took all of the houses that were on the market at a given time and just didn't let any other houses come on the market, given the average rate of house sales, how long would it take us for us to exhaust that inventory? So down here, it would only take 5 weeks to run through all of those houses that were currently on the market, whereas back here, it would have taken much longer, more like 15 weeks to run through all of that existing inventory. So here we're trying to look at the association between those two variables, and as we can see, the blue is what we've been seeing before, average house price, and this is that familiar spike that we saw where it goes up here. But what we can notice is at the same time that the average house price is going up, the average weeks of inventory, which is the black, is going down. So this is kind of classic supply and demand from economics. As the supply of houses is going down, the price of houses is going up, and so we can see that easily. Now, the double y-axis charts don't have to be line charts. It could be that for one dimension we're going to use something like columns and the other ones we're going to use lines. But in each case, the common theme is that we've got two different things that we want to show, typically to show an association, and those two things have very different units that they're measured in, and that's why we're doing it this way. Note that we could put two different data series that start out with very different units on the same axis if we kind of play with the way those numbers are displayed. So here, for example, if we showed house prices in hundreds of thousands, that would just make this axis go from 0 to 8 rather than 0 to 800,000. But that introduces a new difficulty because then people just have to think that little bit harder about what that number really means. Yet it would allow us to show both of them on the same scale. But many times it's just easier to keep the numbers in their natural unit and then just use the second scale to show the association. One thing to keep in mind in using this type of a chart is to be even more careful than usual about your labeling. So here I do have each of the data series labeled. Average price in blue is shown here, weeks of inventory in black is shown here. But a better practice is to show the labels for each chart, as I've done here, and then also even to go further and emphasize that the average price is shown on the left axis, the average weeks of inventory is shown on the right, just to make it that much clearer because people do tend to have trouble with this type of chart. Once again, as we've seen before, using anything other than 0 for a quantitative axis can create confusion. So again, by shrinking the range of this axis to 400,000 to 800,000 as opposed to 0 to 800,000 just makes both of the trends in terms of the drop in weeks of inventory and also the average house price look that much more extreme.